Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Om Purnam Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Okay, so now mantra number 3. Actually. Asurya namate loka andhena tamasavrita tamste prajapikachanti yeke jatmahano jana. Should we do word for word? Do you have the text with you? You have it? Okay. So, yes, mantra 3. Okay. Asurya namate loka andhena tamasavrita tamste prajapikachanti yeke chatmahano jana. You can go ahead. Asurya namate loka andhena tamasavrita tamste prajapikachanti yeke chatmahano jana. Asurya namate loka andhena tamasavrita tamste prajapikachanti yeke chatmahano jana. Anyone else? Okay. Translation. Oh, word for word. Let's do that first and then translation. Asurya, meant for the Asuras. Nama, famous by the name. Te, those. Loka, planets. Andhena, by ignorance. Tamasa, by darkness. Avrita, covered. Tan, those planets. Te, they. Pretya, after death. Abhigachanti, enter into. Ye, anyone. Ke, everyone, sorry. Ja, and. Atmahana, the killers of the soul. Janaha, persons. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. Purport. Human life is distinguished from animal life due to its heavy responsibilities. Those who are cognizant of these responsibilities and who work in that spirit are called suras, godly persons. And those who are neglectful of these responsibilities, who have no information of them, are called asuras, demons. Throughout the universe, there are only these two types of human being. In the Rig Veda, it is stated that the suras always aim at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Vishnu and act accordingly. Their ways are as illuminated as the path of the sun. Intelligent human beings must always remember that the soul obtains a human form after an evolution of many millions of years in the cycle of transmigration. The material world is sometimes compared to an ocean, and the human body is compared to a solid boat designed especially to cross this ocean. The Vedic scriptures and the acharyas, or saintly teachers, are compared to expert boatmen, and the facilities of the human body are compared to favorable breezes that help the boat ply smoothly to its desired destination. If with all these facilities a human being does not fully utilize his life for self-realization, he must be considered Atmaha, a killer of the soul. Sri Isopanisad warns in clear terms that the killer of the soul is destined to enter into the darkest region of ignorance to suffer perpetually. There are swine, dogs, camels, asses, etc., whose economic necessities are just as important to them as ours are to us. But the economic problems of these animals are solved only under nasty and unpleasant conditions. The human being is given all facilities for a comfortable life by the laws of nature, because the human form of life is more important and valuable than animal life. Why is man given a better life than that of the swine and other animals? Why is a highly placed government servant given better facilities than those of an ordinary clerk? The answer is that a highly placed officer has to discharge duties of a higher nature. Similarly, the duties human beings have to perform are higher than those of animals, who are always engaged in simply feeding their hungry stomachs. Yet the modern soul-killing civilization has only increased the problems of the hungry stomach. When we approach a polished animal in the form of a modern civilized man and ask him to take interest in self-realization, he will say that he simply wants to work to satisfy his stomach and that there is no need of self-realization for a hungry man. The laws of nature are so cruel, however, that despite his denunciation of the need for self-realization and his eagerness to work hard to fill his stomach, he is always threatened by unemployment. We are given this human form of life not to work hard like asses, swine, and dogs, but to attain the highest perfection of life. If we do not care for self-realization, the laws of nature force us to work very hard, even though we may not want to do so. Human beings in this age have been forced to work hard like the asses and bullocks that pull carts. Some of the regions where the asuras are sent to work are revealed in this verse of Sri Isopanisad. If a man fails to discharge his duties as a human being, he is forced to transmigrate to the Asura planets and take birth in degraded species of life, to work hard in ignorance and darkness. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that a man who enters upon the path of self-realization but does not complete the process, despite having sincerely tried to realize his relationship with God, is given a chance to appear in a family of Shuchi or Srimat. The word Shuchi indicates a spiritually advanced Brahmana, and Srimat indicates a Vaishya, a member of the mercantile community. So the person who fails to achieve self-realization is given a better chance in his next life due to his sincere efforts in this life. If even a fallen candidate is given a chance to take birth in a respectable and noble family, one can hardly imagine the status of one who has achieved success. By simply attempting to realize God, one is guaranteed birth in a wealthy or aristocratic family. But those who do not even make an attempt, who want to be covered by illusion, who are too materialistic and too attached to material enjoyment, must enter into the darkest regions of hell. As confirmed throughout the Vedic literature, such materialistic asuras sometimes make a show of religion, but their ultimate aim is material prosperity. The Bhagavad Gita rebukes such men by calling them Atma Sambhavita, meaning that they are considered great only on the strength of deception and are empowered by the votes of the ignorant and by their own material wealth. Such asuras, devoid of self-realization and knowledge of Ishavasya, the Lord's universal proprietorship, are certain to enter into the darkest regions. The conclusion is that as human beings, we are meant not simply for solving economic problems on a tottering platform, but for solving all the problems of the material life into which we have been placed by the laws of nature. So let's go through the purport step by step. So Srila Prabhupada, he's saying that how human life is distinguished from animal life. And we can see that the birds, they're chanting nicely outside to their best ability, but they don't really have the same capacity to ask, who is Krishna, who is God, who am I? They're just living, they're living out their karma. They're not creating any karma, they're just living it out. And in some ways they live very simple lives, but they're not capable in that particular body of asking questions which are of a higher nature. They don't have that facility. They weren't given that facility in this life. So Prabhupada is saying we have heavy responsibilities in the human form of life. And if we're aware that we have these heavy responsibilities, then we're making some effort towards spiritual advancement, and we're called suras, godly persons. And then there are, on the other hand, asuras, the demons. And these are people who have absolutely no interest. Well, there's different kinds of asuras. Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj explains that one kind of asura is a person who just is completely ignorant that he has a responsibility. He doesn't know at all that he has some responsibility to perform in spiritual life. Then there's the asura who knows but doesn't care. And an example of that is Ravana. He was very spiritually advanced. He knew how to make spiritual advancement, but he didn't want to. Rather, he tried to build a staircase to reach the heavenly planets for more enjoyment. He thought he's so powerful, he could do such a thing. And so he knew he had the knowledge, but he misused the knowledge. He didn't care. And so there's only these two types of human beings, the suras and asuras. And many times I've been asked the question, if God is perfect and all of his creation is perfect, and that's what the invocation says, Om Purnamada Purnamidam, everything is completely perfect. Krishna creates everything perfectly. Why is it that there are demons? How is that even possible? Why aren't we all just devotees? That's because we have minute independence. And with that minute independence, we can choose to become an asura. And I had a friend who thought, well, if I don't succeed in becoming a devotee, maybe I'll just try to become the best asura, because then Krishna will come and kill me. Because, yada yada hi dharmasya, Krishna will come to defeat the demons. He will fight with the demons. And if you actually can fight with Krishna, then your life is a great success. But rather than trying to become an asura, especially if you know the value of trying to become Krishna's devotee, we should really try to be the devotee instead of the asura. But in this age of Kali Yuga, the tendency towards being an asura and the tendency towards being asura is contained within one person. So we always have to decide, do we want to follow Maya or do we want to follow Krishna? We are constantly having to make those decisions. And Srila Prabhupada, he brings up this mantra, it's in the Rig Veda, which speaks about how the suras are always just focused on the lotus feet of the Lord. And he says here, their ways are as illuminated as the path of the sun. And it's a very beautiful verse. I struggle to find a translation anywhere other than in these Pujari notes from Mayapur. But it's really wonderful, the translation. The text is Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Shuraya Devi Vachakshuratatam Tad Vipraso Vipanyavo Jagrivam Sasamindate Vishnu Yat Paramam Padam. Just as those with ordinary vision see the sun's rays in the sky, so the wise and learned devotees always see the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu. Because those highly praiseworthy and spiritually awake brahmanas can see that abode, they can also reveal it to others. So Srila Prabhupada is Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai. So Srila Prabhupada is making the point that the suras, the people who are always trying to please the Lord, their path is illuminated, and it's because Krishna's giving them some kind of darshan of himself. He's reciprocating with them. And then of course there's this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Tisham satata yuktanam bhajatam preti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So he's illuminating. And then Tisham mevanu kampartam aham agyana jamtama nashayami atma bhavoshti gyanadipena basvata. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So that's why the suras, their path is illuminated, their ways are illuminated. Krishna is illuminating their ways and path for them and giving darshan of his abode, which is their destination. So their paths are illuminated by this knowledge. And then Srila Prabhupada, he brings up this point of how actually a soul attains this human form of life after an evolution of many millions of years in the cycle of transmigration. So there in the Bhagavad Gita, he says in this one purport, it's chapter 8, text 3. When the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, then the living entity descends to the earth in the form of rain, then takes on the form of grains. And the grains are eaten by man and transformed into semen, which impregnates a woman. And thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice, and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. So we've been in every different kind of body, and we've gone through this process again and again and again. We've been in the material world for so long, so many thousands of years, and it's really a great. It's really a great opportunity to be given the form of a human being, because then we have that responsibility there for us to try and make spiritual advancement. And there are 8,400,000 species of life. So here we are, finally we have a human birth again after some time. And we have that opportunity. And then Srila Prabhupada, he gives this analogy that the human body, it's like a boat. It's especially designed to cross the ocean of material suffering. And then he says that the boatman is the Vedic scriptures and the acharyas. So we can read in Bhagavatam how person Bhagavatam and book Bhagavatam are non-different from one another. So here the acharyas and the Vedic scriptures, they are our expert boatmen. And the facilities of the human body, they are the favorable breezes that help the boat to reach its destination. But even if we have all of these facilities to reach self-realization, if we neglect to consider the soul, then we are considered a killer of the soul, atmaha. So it's not that the soul can be killed, but it's just that we're neglecting our responsibility and we're creating a life in which our karma is building up, and then in the next life we may not receive a human body, and we'll just go through this transmigration again and again. So that person is considered a killer of the soul. And then Srila Prabhupada, it gets quite heavy here. He says the killer of the soul is destined to enter the darkest region of ignorance, to suffer perpetually. And he just brings up this point that there are all of these different kinds of animals, and they have the same needs we do. They need to eat, they need to sleep. We need to do the same thing as them, but the way in which they have to live is not as comfortable as us. They live outside, and it's quite austere. Their lives are very austere. They just move from tree to tree. We have nice, comfortable houses. And then Prabhupada asks, why is it that we are given a better facility than the animals? And then he gives another analogy here. He's saying that, well, if there's a government servant, he will be given better facilities than the ordinary clerk. So it's, if the government servant, he has responsibilities which are of a higher nature. So he's given more facility. So we have this facility to use in Krishna's service. So the birds wouldn't know if they had such facility, what would they do? They don't think about using it in Krishna's service. They just don't have the capacity. Of course, we should understand that each and every living entity is very dear to the Lord. It's not that the birds and all the different kinds of creatures are not very, very dear to the Lord. They are all parts and parcels of the Lord. Each and every one of us are. And we are all eternal spirit souls. It's just that in that particular body, which we also were in at some point, they don't have that facility. And then Srila Prabhupada says that the modern soul-killing civilization has only increased the problems of the hungry stomach. So actually, he makes a similar kind of point somewhere else in a class. He was saying that it's not actually that we have scarcity in this world, on this planet. There is no scarcity. It's just that our utilization of all the resources is not proper. It's not distributed properly. So now we see we have load shedding, we have no water. It's not that there is no water. It's not that there is no access to different kinds of power on this planet. It's just that the leaders of society aren't so invested in protecting the people and looking after the people as much as they're interested in their own personal gain. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But in previous yugas, they were righteous kings, and actually people didn't have to work so hard. So Prabhupada goes into this point that even though people don't want to work so hard, they're working so hard just to survive, to be able to eat and sleep and take care of themselves. The laws of nature are forcing them to do so, especially in the age of Kali, because yes, when King Yudhisthira was the king, everything was very nice actually. Everyone had everything they needed. There was plenty of everything for everyone. And now we see that it's not quite like that. It's very different. And this is Kali Yuga. Okay. And again, Srila Prabhupada is saying, he repeats this point that if a man is failing to discharge his duties as a human being, he is forced to transmigrate to the Asurya planets, to take birth in degraded species of life, to work hard in ignorance and darkness. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can read in Canto 5 about the description of the different hellish planets. It's really awful. It's not a place we want to go. There are about between 21 and 28 hellish planets. It's quite a few. And on the different planets, depending on your activities, you'll go to a specific planet designed specifically for your suffering, depending on what kinds of activities you performed if you were sinful in this life. That's the nature of karma. It's kind of ironic. Working so hard for material enjoyment leads to so much suffering, so much. And you know, here we are. We're in the middle of the planetary system. There are the higher planets, the heavenly planets, and everything is very nice. There's a lot of enjoyment, but there's so much enjoyment that a person easily forgets about Krishna. They think everything is so nice, I don't need anything else. And then there's the lower planets, the hellish planets, which is what we're talking about. It's really tough down there. There's so much torture. You can't think about anything except the suffering. And here we are in the middle of all of that. Bhumi, we are here on planet Earth in the middle between those two. There is some suffering, and there is some idea of enjoyment. It's not so bad. And so that's a really good position for making spiritual advancement. It's not so nice that you just forget, or so bad that you just forget. It's kind of something in the middle. So there's an opportunity in both circumstances, suffering and not suffering, to make advancement. And actually sometimes that little bit of suffering is really good and important, otherwise we become very complacent. So it's actually needed for us to realize we don't belong here at all. This is not our home. And then Srila Prabhupada speaks about how if we don't complete the process, even if we make some little advancement on the process, it's very good, then we are born into a family that will help us to continue making that progress. And we can see some of the devotees coming in, it could be either that they are coming to assist us, or they're coming to preach to us, or it could be that they're making more advancement, that they've made advancement and they're continuing. Could be either of those, the children coming in. Okay. And and Srila Prabhupada, he says that again, he's pointing it out again. So that's 3 times he's pointing this out, that if we neglect our responsibilities, if we're not even making an attempt at spiritual life, and if we want to be covered by illusion, if we're too materialistic, we have to go to the darkest regions of hell. So that's something he's really pointing out to us, that if we don't do it, we've got to go down there. And it's not a good place. It's not a good place to be. If we work so hard for Maya, if we work so hard to get so much in the material world, then everything is taken away from us. But if we work so hard for Krishna, we get everything. And that's where Prabhupada, he ends with this, that the conclusion is that as human beings, we are meant not simply for solving economic problems on a tottering platform. Tottering, it's, unsteady. It's all illusory. Everything anyway will be taken away from us. But for solving all the problems of the material life into which we have been placed by the laws of nature. So there was this one magician, P.C. Sarkar. He's a famous magician who went to go and see Srila Prabhupada. And he was performing all these wonderful different tricks. He could make things appear out of nowhere, and the devotees they were appreciating his different magic tricks. But then he asks Srila Prabhupada, "Can you show me a magic trick?" He wants to see magic. And Srila Prabhupada, he says, "Actually, I'm a better magician than you." And then the magician asks, "How is that? Can you make coins disappear?" And Srila Prabhupada said, "No, but can you make birth, death, old age, and disease disappear?" And he said, "No, he can't." So this is the real magic, not just some show of mystic powers or something like that, but actually giving the ultimate solution to the ultimate problems of life: birth, death, old age, and disease. This Prabhupada could end that. That's real magic. And sure, I mean, Srila Prabhupada was a Shaktivesh avatar. He was empowered by the Lord himself to share love of God. He could have walked on water. He didn't have to fly in airplanes. I'm sure if he asked Krishna, "Can I just fly around?" Krishna, I'm sure he would have just agreed to that. But Prabhupada didn't do that because he didn't make a show of his mystic powers. He had mystic powers. A devotee does. They get all the mystic powers as they go along. But he didn't make a show of any of that. Sometimes the devotee saw, like when he was behind the curtain in the altar, and I think the pillar was falling, and Srila Prabhupada, it's such a heavy pillar, no one could carry that, but he actually held it up. That kind of strength given by Krishna, that's powerful. But he didn't reveal that in public because he didn't want to attract people who were just coming to make a show of spiritual life, who wanted some material benefits. He wanted to attract people who sincerely wanted to develop their affection for Krishna. That's what bhakti is about. It's not about the show of what we can do with our mystic powers or what kind of strength we have in the material world. It's about affection for Krishna. That's what it is. And my Guru Maharaj on Wednesday told me that there is no material impediment to bhakti. No material impediment. So all we have to do is practice Krishna consciousness, and then all the material problems are actually solved eternally. We just take one step at a time. If we focus on Maya and we want to get more and more, we lose everything. But if we focus on Krishna, we receive everything. Okay, we'll stop there for today. Are there any comments, questions, or corrections? Okay. Shri Isopanisad ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.